What's good, Raider Nation? Welcome back to Vegas Nation First and 10, your weekly go-to for Raider news and analysis. The offseason keeps marching forward. We're getting closer and closer to OTAs, which start next week, and training camp, mini camp and then training camp. It's all happening, and it's all right around the corner, which is kind of cool. I'm Vinny Bonsignore. I cover the Raiders for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. My colleague to my left is Adam Hill. He also covers the Raiders and many other things for Vegas Nation and the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Before we get to the big day that just occurred, which was the release of the NFL and Raiders schedule, I just want to remind everybody that all Vegas Nation podcasts are brought to you by Station Casinos, STN Sports, and also the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and we thank them for all of their support. Adam Hill, I want to start.
Hold on. While you're talking about that, we should also say big day here at the Review-Journal.
Yes.
Relaunching Neon?
Yes, absolutely.
It's fantastic. All the entertainment news. I know a lot of our listeners and readers love to come to Vegas. They would either live in Vegas or come here for games. Anything you want to know going on in the entertainment world, go check it out.
Which is important, and it kind of
a big city for sports and entertainment.
No question about it, and that is the perfect segue for what I wanted to start off with, because when people come out to see the Raiders play, whether they are fans of the Raiders that live in California or Arizona, or I've met them all the way from London, Australia, wherever, or they're opposing teams fans, and we see a lot of that as well. It's only to be expected with a destination city like Las Vegas. They plan an entire weekend, and so they may go see the Eagles in concert and the Raiders game on Sunday, or U2, or whoever is the residency, Janet Jackson. It becomes a whole event, and it ducktails into what I wanted to start off the show with, Adam. There's media members, prominent media members, and people that I respect that always kind of poo-poo the release of the schedule, and they do it in a way that I believe is insulting to the intelligence of the fans, as if they're just these mindless sheep who go along with whatever the NFL is putting out there next and gobbling it up without any thought or anything like that. And it's a total insult to their intelligence. And I want to correct some of them into understanding, or at least make them understand there are practical purposes why fans are extremely interested in the schedule. It goes above and beyond the betting part of it, which is, we will get into that, because a lot of bets probably were made over the last couple of days. You have to know when the games are, what time of the year, all of those good things. But even beyond that is the travel aspect that fans now partake in when it comes to the NFL. It's not 30 years ago, where traveling to games to go see your favorite teams play wasn't a big thing. Now it's so easy to do your travel. You could buy your tickets online or on your phone. You can book your travel as quickly as you can. Nowadays on your phone, wherever you are. It's not just mindlessly following what the NFL is doing. Fans want to know when these games are to start planning their travel, especially
I'm somewhere in between on this with you. I agree. There are a small amount of fans.
Not
that
a
do that.
small.
I think it's pretty small.
There's a lot of this team in particular.
Well, let's say the amount of fans that actually travel to games is a very small percentage of NFL fans.
It's not. If you go to a Green Bay Packers game, you think all those fans are coming from Green Bay?
No, hold on. I don't think you listened to what I said.
All right.
A very small percentage of NFL fans are actually traveling to games.
But there's a lot of fans, so that
small
percentage represents a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
I'm saying. Stop with the whole thing where they're like fans are just mindlessly following.
No,
but I think
the
why, and the betting part of it plays into it,
a little,
and the travel part plays into it more than you think.
But it's such a small percentage of fans that actually can travel.
No, but that could be.
I don't think
hundreds of thousands of fans,
right?
Which I know that.
I'm going to give the NFL. The NFL has made this into this massive spectacle, and it's a great job by them.
No,
for sure.
No doubt. But these fans aren't just sheep, is what I'm saying. There's practical purposes why fans are extremely invested in this schedule release, because they start booking their travel, as do we, by the way.
Sure.
Because you want to get in on the pricing with whether it's hotels or what about taking off work? You know what I'm saying? Like planning purposes.
No, but again, yes.
Also, your parties that you're planning. This is a whole big thing that so many people lose sight of. What actually constitutes being a fan.
You're right, but that is a small percentage of fans.
The vast majority makes up a lot of people.
It does. Yeah. But it is a small percentage, a very small percentage, that actually travels to games.
I don't know.
The NFL has just done a very, very good job. I'm crediting them. They've done a good job of making this a thing. There is many, many people that follow the NFL and follow it closely who now believe you don't know the opponents until the schedule is released.
That's ridiculous.
Because they've made it that big of a thing.
That's ridiculous.
It's true.
No, the typical fan totally knows what the games are. First of all, you've got 8 games just against
hardcore fans. It's 6 games.
What do
6
you
games
think?
against your division.
Okay, but that, again, do you really think that fans don't know the average fan doesn't know who the opponents are? They want to know when the games are, Adam. They want to know if you're a Green Bay Packer fan. You think all Green Bay Packer fans live in Green Bay?
No.
How many percentage of how many fans that follow the Packers?
A very small percentage of Packers fans live in Green Bay.
What does that mean now? So for what percentage lives out of Green Bay?
This is first of all, I think it's a silly argument.
Nobody
lives in Green Bay. Okay. They all have to. So they all have to drive. 100%. They all have to drive to the games.
They have to drive to the games from where?
From Milwaukee and Appleton and
Chicago.
Sure.
A lot of people fly in. A lot of people. You know how many times I'm at an airport and I'm coming to cover the Chiefs game against the Raiders, and there's Chiefs fans coming in from everywhere else because they didn't remain in Kansas City. They moved out of Kansas City, but kept a hold of their season tickets. So I'm just saying that it's ridiculous to think that all fans are just mindlessly waiting to see who their team.
Nothing's all. There's a percentage.
It's a significant
percentage
amount of people
that has now, because the league has done such an amazing job. I love schedule day. Like, I'm not poo-pooing the fact that schedule day is a thing now, and I love it.
Their intelligence, like they're mindlessly doing this. That's ridiculous.
Well, I do think there is a percentage of fans now that believe that's the day you learn when the opponents are. There is a percentage of
very
fans
small
that just like a very small percentage travel.
It's bigger than you think.
It's a very small percentage travel.
How many of Raider fans? How many people are traveling in from elsewhere to watch games?
I mean, you would think at least half that come to the games.
That's a lot of people.
Right, but in the grand scheme of things, let's say there's 8. I mean, this is very silly for people that are out there. Let's say there's 8 games. There's half the people travel to every game.
Yeah.
You're talking about like 250,000 people total, and that's most of them are repeats, right? They're not just coming to one game for the year. So that's such a small percentage of how many millions and millions of Raiders fans.
Well,
that's such a small percentage.
I know, but those there's anyway.
But yes,
but there's
I
also
think
interest in knowing when games.
Your point is that there are a lot of many people that are like, why do people care about schedule release day? Everybody knows what the opponents are anyway. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that don't know who the opponents are.
Fine.
There's a lot of people that want to know when they travel. There's a lot of people that want to know really what you want to know is the primetime games. You want to know if there's back-to-back road trips.
There's actual practical purposes.
That's the kind of things you really, really want to know.
Yeah, and a lot of right.
And then there's all these different people have different reasons for wanting to know different parts of the schedule. And now we've gotten to a point where it's like a holiday.
Yes.
And you have all the schedule release videos and those sorts of things that people celebrate and love. So
the part of why are fans so interested? I'm like, how do you not know why fans would be interested in that?
Yeah, and there's people that
why it should be a big day. And
there's people that say, well, why are fans interested in the Super Bowl when their team's not in it? Like everybody wants to poo-poo everything in a lot of ways, for sure. But I do think that it's fair to say the NFL has turned this into something bigger than it needs to be or should be. Good job by them.
They've understood that there's many reasons why fans want to know, want to get that information, and they've seized on that. Which that's what you should. When you realize you have a market for something, you market it. But I also think it's the egg. What came first, the chicken or the egg? The interest has to be there, number one. And there's there's important reasons why a lot of fans are really interested in the schedule release.
Yeah.
You're fixed on the a lot.
Yeah, because
a lot of fans have a lot of different reasons.
Many people have many different reasons for a lot of different things.
And the many is huge. But it's not just, gosh, I didn't know they were playing the Chiefs this year.
There is a percentage that is that. You see it on Twitter.
Yeah, well,
nobody's saying the Chiefs.
That's fine.
But you're like, wow, I saw people that are like, oh wow, they're playing all the teams in the NFC East, and they're like,
you saw a lot of people. I have close to 70,000 followers. Not one person. I didn't see one person say that.
Well, followers don't mean you see what they tweet.
I do. Well, yeah.
Only if they.
I have to look. I'll have to look at that.
Follow 70,000 people, and if you did, you weren't seeing all their tweets anyway. But there are those, and then you see that we've known that for 4 or 5, actually 11 or 12 years.
Well, you always know who your division teams are.
And the other division that you're playing against.
Yeah.
There's only 3 teams. Like, the schedule right now for 2032.
Yeah.
Except for 3 teams.
Right.
Yes, exactly. You know what.
Except
what
for
that is.
Exactly. Anyway,
but I don't think
I just wanted to.
I think there's people right now that are like, wait, you do? Yes. Yeah, you do. We already know right now. You can look.
That's fair.
There are future schedules. There's
That's
three
fair.
teams.
Just go to
futureopponents.com.
Yeah,
And there's 3 teams every year that are determined by where you finish in the standings.
Yes.
And so like that you don't know.
Right.
But for the most part, you know.
And
years
by
and years
then
in advance.
you know that in January.
Yeah,
you basically
as
know
soon as
that
the season's
in
over, you know who those teams are going to be.
Anyway, sorry for going off on a tangent.
It's why the Raiders are playing the Colts now for the 7th time in 8 years.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Because they always keep finishing
the same spot.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then they're playing in that division.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The Indianapolis Colts is on they are on the Raiders schedule. Surprisingly, maybe to some people, but they are. But let's get into the Raiders schedule because that's who this podcast.
We found out who they're playing this week. This week we found out the teams that they're playing
and when, more importantly, And I want to start off with the first 4 games of the season. And I think it's a little bit tougher than maybe some people suspect. I think that New England Patriots game is going to be a tough game to start off back east in New England. Josh McDaniels, now the offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots. Pete Carroll going back to his old job. And it's only the second time that Pete's going to be back to New England. He's coached against them over the years, but this is only going to be
one pretty famous game.
Yes, exactly. It's going to be only the second time that he's gone back. Then home to the Chargers on Monday night. Then a short week to Washington, D.C. to play the Commanders, followed by a home game against the Bears. I'm looking at that, and I wouldn't be surprised. 2-2 feels maybe doable. But if I'm a Raider fan, I'm not necessarily going to be freaking out if it's even worse than 2-2.
Yeah, if it's 1-3. I mean, they are right now. They're favored in one of those games. Oh no, they're not.
No, they're not favored in
any.
I
was say maybe Bears at home, but no, they're not. They're not favored in any of those 4
right.
games. I saw people that said, "Oh, first 7 games very manageable. Shouldn't be any worse than 5-2." And you're like, I don't know about that. They're going to be favored in one of the first 7 games, essentially. So yeah, none of those games they'll be favored in, or are not right now.
As of right now,
the game is posted right now. It could move.
Yeah.
But yeah, that 2-2 would be, I think, a fantastic start for the Raiders. I think they'd be very excited about that. And when you look at the schedule as a whole, you just mentioned kind of East Coast back. There's several East Coast trips, none back to back. So there's no like break in the schedule where you do that. There is later in the year a really nice run where it's like bye week, 2 home games, then LA, then home.
Yeah,
which means
as opposed
you really
to playing
only
3 games in 11 days.
Yeah, but
it's 3 in 22, I think.
But in LA being the longest trip,
right,
out of that. So I think that's a really nice stretch of the schedule for the Raiders.
Yes.
So there are I think, while you look at it and say you probably would have wanted to have 2 East Coast games back to back, maybe, so you could knock those out and maybe stay on the East Coast.
They kind of do that with the Patriots, and it's not back to back, but it's within the
East home East.
Yeah,
you'd rather do back to back. I mean that's tough to go East home. I think in East
especially
again.
On a short week.
Isn't it 3 East Coast trips in the first 5?
The Colts, I think, is somewhere in there.
Yeah. So so you're back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, which isn't ideal. But again, you do make up for that later in the year. And by the way, you're getting those trips out of the way. New England in September, much nicer than New England in December. Same as Washington, really probably not much of a weather issue there. The only one really would be Philadelphia, maybe Denver.
We might even see Indianapolis with the dome open.
Potentially,
I'd love that.
Potentially, that'd be nice. So yeah, I mean, I think that they got some breaks in terms of the schedule.
They did.
Again, it's not the opponents; it's where these games fall, and I think they got some breaks there a little bit. Although the downside would be the fact that they are back and forth a little bit. But later in the year, I think is when you want to have a more favorable schedule, and I think they got that. They got the bye at a pretty good time. I think that there's things that happened for sure that you could look at positively or negatively, but I think overall there's nothing overly daunting in terms of when these games fall.
No, and then even if they should play their way into, let's say, playoff contention in December, it starts fairly tough, I would say, at Houston and at Philadelphia, 2 playoff teams on the road. Fairly significant trips. Certainly the Philadelphia trip, but they end the season if they could somehow manage to get to their last 2 weeks of the season in some sort of playoff contention. Not saying that it's going to happen, but if they did, you got the New York Giants in Week 17.
Sure.
Should be. I would imagine they're favored in that game right now.
Well, there's so the positive, and I'll let you get back to the point. The positives of the you could say, I think you look at this either way. One of the positives for the Raiders and the way their opponents fell this year, they have 4 games against bottom-feeding teams, or expected to be bottom-feeding teams, all at home.
Yes.
And so that's
Titans,
4 games
Jaguars,
that you would
Giants.
expect that you should be able to win those 4 games. And then it's like, okay, how do you play out the rest of the schedule if you played 500 against the rest of your opponents? You're in a great position.
Yeah.
If you drop a game or 2 below 500, you're even in an okay position there. You have to take care of those 4 games right off the top and say those 4 are
must wins.
You don't like to say it right now,
know,
but they're must wins
yeah.
if you want to get to where you want to get. That's the positive. The negative side is that there is of their 8 road games, 6 were in the playoffs last year. I think everybody has seen the numbers. We don't really rehash them. Geno Smith against playoff teams and non-playoff teams on the road really never beats a playoff team on the road. Dominates them. Dominates non-playoff teams on the road. So that is daunting. I would say for the Raiders a little bit. But you've got to that's what you have to do.
I'd love to find out what quarterback dominates playoff teams on the road.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's.
And I'm not.
Like
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
Something along those lines.
It's like he gets dominated.
Yeah.
Which even middle ground would be obviously better than what those numbers.
And I think the flip side of that isn't just that he has such a poor record. It's that he has a very, very good record going on the road.
Yeah.
And beating bad teams. Like that's what he's able to do, and you have to do that. You have to take advantage of those opportunities.
But you also have to.
Yeah, you got to find a way to beat good teams sometimes. And look, just because the team was good last year or they were a playoff team last year doesn't mean they're going to be this year. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. But if you have to look at the schedule as it is right now and what you expect, and right now they're playing 6 road games against teams that made the playoffs last year.
Exactly. Real quick, along those lines, we're going to go out to our own Heidi Fang and Chuck Esposito, the race and sportsbook director of Station Casinos, and they're going to talk about the schedule and how it applies to that world over there. Heidi, Chuck, take it away.
Joining us now on the First and 10 podcast, we have the race and sportsbook director from Station Casinos in for his weekly segment, Chuck Esposito. And I'm especially excited because we are going to talk right now about the games for the Raiders season, how many they're favored for, how many they're not. Chuck, we're going to get into all of that. But first, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Heidi. It's always fun. I mean, are you ready for some football in May? I know we talked about the draft not too long ago, and now we have all the Raiders games up, as you mentioned, and week 1 for the entire league. So always fun for us. I mean, football is king, and it's never too early to start talking about football.
Never too early. And of course, when we're looking at these games, these are the early odds, things you never know how it can shape up and how it might turn out. But right now, Raiders only favored in 4 games on the season. And we were talking here beforehand, Chuck, and you noted that the ones that they're favored in are against teams that had drafted in the top 5 in this year's NFL draft. So can you shake out some of these numbers here for us where the Raiders are actually favored?
Yeah, I think when you look at their schedule, a lot of travel. I know we talked about it off air, starting against New England, coming home, then going against Washington, then coming home. And I think it's through week 7 that they have a tremendous amount of travel back to the East Coast. But looking at their schedule, I mean, there are winnable games at home against the Titans, the Giants, the Browns, and the Jags. Coincidentally enough, all those teams drafted before the Raiders drafted in April's draft. So, but they are the favorite in 4 home games, no road games right now. But you're right. It's early. It's last year. I think they were favored in 2 games prior to the start of the season. Once the season got underway, they were only favored in 1. This year, they are the favorite in 4 games that appear right now to all be winnable games at home.
Well, let's check out some of the games that I was looking at that I'm particularly interested in. They do have 3 primetime games this year. So the Raiders, Monday Night Football, first one in week 2 against the Chargers. And that one, of course, the Raiders are not favored in. Like you said, a couple tough matchups. I like this one particularly for the Raiders and Pete Carroll, being that as a former NFC West coach, he's going up against another former NFC West coach in Jim Harbaugh. So those two used to clash when it was Seattle and Niners. Here we go now in the AFC West with Jim Harbaugh and Pete Carroll. What do you expect this matchup, this chess matchup between these two who are so familiar with each other to look like?
Well, you look at the win totals for these 2 teams and kind of what their Super Bowl odds are and to win the division and kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. There's a lot of hype about this Charger team. I know we talked a few weeks ago, and I said, I think there's a chance that maybe you have a different winner of the AFC West, that maybe the Chargers or Broncos actually dethrone the Chiefs. So I think it's a tough spot. They're only a very small underdog in this game, a field goal underdog to the Chargers. But the Chargers are one of those upswing teams. They had a good draft of picking up Hampton. They added Najee Harris in the offseason. I know they lost some pieces on defense, but it's Jim Harbaugh in year 2. They were very good in year 1. See if they take that step in year 2. It just seems to be two teams kind of trending the opposite way. But you have to factor in Pete Carroll, who's an awfully good coach and knows this other team pretty well.
Absolutely, and knows the coach well as well. And then I wanted to skip all the way to the end of the season because you talked about the Chiefs, and that to me is interesting. It's a January 4th matchup. Right now, the time and everything to be determined, but finishing the season on your division rival, that kind of just spells like, they wrote the script for this one, Chuck. What do you have on the numbers for Raiders-Chiefs and their second matchup of the year being the last game of the season?
Well, when it's the last game, it could be a game that means absolutely nothing to the Chiefs and maybe something to the Raiders, where they're looking to finish the year strong, have a win against a divisional opponent, have a win against the Chiefs who have been so dominant. The Chiefs are a little bit under a touchdown favorite in this game right now. A lot can change, but there's a real possibility that this game maybe means nothing to Kansas City.
Right. That's 100% true. You never know by the time it comes around to the end of the season what's going to be locked up already. But Chuck, is there anything that I missed here that you really want to point fans to, people that are going to walk into station casinos to and look at that STN Sports app and say, okay, this is a bet where there might be some value and I could have a good one here, especially because the Raiders historically, they've done pretty well against the spread.
It's not so much value. I think just looking at the app, if you don't have the STN app, get the app right now, because as I mentioned earlier, you're ready for some football. There's divisions, there's conferences, there's to win the Super Bowl, teams to make the playoffs, over under win totals, props involving Genty, and now we have up every game in week 1 and all the Raiders games. So if you're a football fan and you want to look at stuff kind of far out right now, start looking at all this stuff and maybe comparing and doing your own homework, and maybe you can find the value where you think it is in some of these lines. But a lot will change. As we know, this is just our early stab at it on what we think the line will be. But there's going to be some dramatic changes probably for the Raiders and against the Raiders in some of these games. But as we alluded to, a tremendous amount of travel the first half of the season. And how does that weigh on the Raiders, and what kind of effect does that have on the lines in the first half of the season?
100%. I am with you there, because there was only one game that they were favored in last year, and that did not pan out well against the Carolina Panthers. I'm sure Raiders fans don't want to really remember that one, but it was the only game last year they're favored. This year now 4. Again, you can find all of these numbers on the station casinos, in the books, and on their STN Sports app. Make sure to check that out today. And Chuck, I sure appreciate your time and joining us here on the show today.
It was my pleasure. It's great to, as I mentioned, talk some football, and these are hot off the press. So take a look at STN Sports and all the football lines, especially all the stuff going on with Raider football.
Our thanks again to Heidi Fang and Chuck Esposito from Station Casinos STN Sports. All right, you saw the schedule. You now know who the opponents are, Adam.
I was wondering.
Where?
I mean, I wrote a story about it a couple months ago, but I was still wondering.
Yeah, right. We know when the games are and all that good stuff. Any gut feeling prediction on a win total for the Raiders this year?
So I think we did say, or I did say last week, I think the Raiders have one of the lowest win totals in the league, 6.5. It was 5.5. They've made some changes. I think that what they've done is built a team that's not going to be terrible. I think that's been kind of the mission. I don't think they're going to be that bad. And I think when you can look at a record or look at a schedule overall that has 4 games right off the top that you think you absolutely should win, doesn't mean you're going to, but you should. Now it's just a matter of finding ways to win a couple other games. And I think where they are at 6.5 is I think too low. I think 7 is probably the right number, and maybe they get to 8. I mean, that's potentially possible,
right?
For this team. I just think that they've done a really good job of making sure that they're going to be competitive, and making sure that, like I said, they're not going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I think that was a mission that this team set out for. I said all along I think they should have tried to maybe be bad and really built everything to try to be great 2-3 years from now, but what they've done is said we don't want to be one of the worst teams in the league. They've ensured that, I think, with what they've done. That was clearly a mission of this team. So,
which is basically saying we don't want to continue to be one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah,
because they have been One of the worst teams in the league, at least the last
For sure.
2 years, without question. They want to be better than that.
So, yeah,
we'll see.
I think 7 is probably where they end up, and maybe 8. That'd be a nice year.
I'm saying 8 or 9 because if you take care of business, like you said, against those 4 beatable teams or teams that they are simply better than, can you find 5 other wins of those 13 games or so?
Yeah.
I think they can. So that gives you 9. So we'll see if that comes to fruition.
If you lose one of those games,
then you're putting your
now you're looking at a totally different story.
The hill starts getting a little bit steeper. All right, I will be in Minneapolis next week for the NFL owners' spring meetings and kind of a fairly significant owners' meetings. We'll maybe get some headway on whether or not Las Vegas is in line potentially to be announced as a Super Bowl city. Working on that, but also I said this to you off the air, but for those that read our 2025 prediction column at the beginning of the year, mine, that I said of things that are happening, I said that they were going to announce the Super Bowl for Las Vegas. I also said an NBA team was going to be announced this year, which I think it will be too. That'd be great. Can't wait for that.
A couple things that might come true from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're tracking that. But also a couple of interesting items that they're going to get to. Number one, I'll go, I guess, in order. Number one is they're going to vote on, or potentially vote on, looking at how they seed the playoffs. Typically, it's been if you win your division, you automatically get a home game, and so you're one of the top 3 seeds, right? 4 seeds, correct, in each conference.
Yeah.
Now, what they're thinking about doing is saying, forget about the division winner. They're gonna seed the playoffs in each conference based on 1-loss record. That's it. So if you're a division winner, let's say the AFC South, but you actually have the 6th best record in the league, however you want to do that math, you're not guaranteed a home game. Number one, and number two, you're not gonna get one of those coveted seeds.
Terrible.
I agree.
Idea. Awful.
I agree.
There needs to be a reward for winning your division.
Yes.
Also, the way that yes, it's only 6 of your games now, which is why this is kind of opened up for discussion. That hey, winning your division. It used to be most of your games were in the division, and then It was like, okay, if you win the division, that's something. Now only 6 of your games in the division, so you can win a bad division with a bad record, and that's happened a couple of times. And then you have, like last year, a 14-win team as a wild card, which was celebrated in the Chargers video as well, which is funny. But yeah, if there should be a reward for winning a division. They should keep it the way it is. And
quick question on that, because I know that what people are pointing to is what happened last year with the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions, and they had, I think.
We'll go back. This goes back to this started really, I think, the discussion with Pete Carroll.
Way back when.
Tie it to the Raiders when the Seahawks won the division. I think were they under 500?
7-9,
and they had a playoff game at home. That was the famous Marshawn Lynch game.
Yeah,
and they won, and so people were upset about that. But sorry,
it's far.
It
but
doesn't
here's
happen
the thing.
often.
That's my point. Like you had to go all the way back to 2010. I think it was, for that. And then last year, which was, the Vikings and the Lions had great records, but because the Vikings won 14 games, yet still had to go out on the road. And by the way, they lost. They lost to the Rams in that game. So here's my thing. Is there like this big calamity that happens on a yearly basis?
Well, that's the point, though, that they lost. No, but I'm saying
the
point is that they lost,
yeah.
That if they were at home, probably would have won that game. So that is where this comes in of like, hey, you're punished for being 14-3 and going on the road. Like, oh well, it happens very rarely.
That's what I'm saying.
You don't change a rule for something that happened, every once in a while. I mean, you can, but in this case, it doesn't make sense. You have to have a reward for winning your division.
Especially when you look at the body of work where this isn't a big deal. This doesn't happen often enough for them to completely change the rules. All right, so they're gonna vote on that. We'll see where that goes. Number 2 is 2028. The Olympics are in Los Angeles, and guess what sport is going to be added to those Olympics? Flag football. And I know you and I know this. Talking to players in the locker room, there's a huge swell of support for players to want to play. They look at their friends in the NBA and other sports and say, I would love to put the USA flag on, and also the marketing deals that come with that, and represent my country.
I will say, and I'm not trying to throw cold water on that. I will say we had a very unique situation when this was announced for football, and that we were in a very international locker room.
We were.
So Jermaine Illuminor was in the locker room at the time, would have represented New England. Jakob Johnson was in the locker room at the time, would have represented Germany. And, by the way, Brian Hoyer, I guess, it would represent he wanted to play for Germany.
Okay, there you go.
If he could make the team. So we were in a very unique situation when this was announced that we had all these international.
And there was a lot of argument with those European players, at least that I heard, with their American players. The American players, there's no way you're going to be able to beat us, and blah blah blah. A lot of banter being talked about, and there are a lot of players that would love to play for their country for a lot of different reasons, but for their country in the Olympics, football is the one sport that doesn't allow for that. Yeah. Now, with flag football, there's an avenue now for players to be involved, and the NFL is now looking at it as, but there's injury risk, and there's a lot of different reasons why we may not want them out there, but they're going to vote on that. And the way it's going to work is if it does get voted or passed, each team will be allowed to have one player participate in the Olympics, unless there's a team like the Raiders that had American players plus players from other countries. So theoretically, let's just say, if going back a couple of years ago, if there was an Olympic sport, maybe Devontae Adams, Jakob Johnson, and Jermaine Illuminor would have all been able to eligible to play. It's one player per country per team.
Then Jakob and Hoyer would have had to fight for who's going to represent Germany,
right?
And look, the argument is out there, and I'm of the side that the NFL guys would eventually just learn it. It's not the same sport.
No, it's not.
It is a different sport.
Correct. It's like baseball and softball.
It's baseball and softball. It's also, I would think, like volleyball and beach volleyball.
There you go.
With 6 players instead of 2, the rotation bar, all those sorts of things. Like, it is a different sport. Now, I think the NFL players would learn very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think they would be good.
Because who's defending Justin Jefferson?
Right. And I think the receivers are where you're like, okay. But I think the quarterback situation, like, yes, quarterbacks understand how to play and they're going to figure it out. But it's a very different, like, how you approach going for first downs, like when do you do that? How do you handle pass rush? Because it's a timed pass rush.
Is it a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi,
sort of
the way we grew up?
So those are the things that, like, yes, I think it would only take a couple of practices and they'd figure it out. But it's not like they would just walk in and be like, okay, I'm better than that guy right there. Like, yes, you are more talented, you're far more skilled, but right now he understands the game better. So those sorts of things had to be worked out. But yeah, I think it would be fascinating. And yeah, the Olympics are about ratings too.
Of course,
they want these guys in
LA
for that reason. So that's why they want to do this. The NFL obviously has more issues, but hey, look, it's a way to market the NFL too. So,
correct. I think that will prevail.
Yeah,
I think the marketing part of it will prevail over the injury risk and all that. And I guess to some extent it would be cutting into some guys' potential of training camp. I guess I don't know when the Olympics typically are, but it'll be cutting it close.
For teams, they'd be like, okay, well, you're in shape.
Yeah,
like it's fine.
Just don't get hurt.
Yeah, don't get hurt. But you are at least you're staying in shape. It's not like you're just sitting at home doing nothing. You're training and working toward.
Who's your 2028 Olympic Team USA quarterback?
Oof. I think it would have to be.
You got to get a runner back there, right?
Yeah, but I think running is a little bit less. It's a little bit less important. It's the accuracy. The accuracy is the most important thing.
It's got to be Patrick Mahomes, right?
I mean, Mahomes would be good. You know who would? I feel like would be a real. It's not gonna go well with Raiders fans. I feel like Justin Herbert would be a great,
Justin Herbert
perfect flag football quarterback.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think like those are. That's you kind of look around and say who would be like the most accurate passer.
Right.
I think is very important. You have to have the athleticism too, but
Max Crosby's going to want to put the Team USA jersey on.
Yeah, I don't
go knock down some passes.
Sorry, if it's one, I don't think you're wasting your player on a defensive, a pass rusher.
Well, I mean, I'm wondering who from the Raiders would even in 2028, Ashton Genty. Brock Bowers. Ooh,
maybe
what a massive.
Yeah. I was thinking you only get one player.
Yeah.
I was thinking you only get one player per country, but it's per team.
Per team
from the NFL.
for the country. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's when it'll be. Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I think it'll
looking
be
forward to that.
To watch.
And lastly,
but I think a guy like Tyreek Hill is so indefensible.
Right.
In this.
No question.
The chase would be pretty tough too.
Right. Him too. There's a bunch of them. Lastly, they're going to revisit the Tush Push. They tabled that at the March owners meetings. You're in favor, not in favor? Where do you fall on that?
Stop it. Just make the like we saw a lot of teams that can't do it.
Right.
A lot of teams just said, "Oh, it's that easy, we'll do it," and then they couldn't.
It's definitely not that easy.
Make the play.
Yeah. My thing is, it was always illegal. I still don't understand why they made it legal. So I'd rather it go back to when it wasn't legal. If you're going to allow somebody to push a running back, you ought to be able to allow a cornerback to push a linebacker then too, right into him. You're not allowed to do that. So I don't see that that's a fair rule, but we'll see.
But that's what all quarterback sneaks have become. Like that quarterback sneaks are just everybody just getting in there and pushing. Like that's the same thing,
but not directly behind.
Yeah, but then that's how it ends up being because the guys end up coming right behind them and they all just start pushing forward.
Yeah, I don't think you should allow that.
It's tough to write the rule in the way, and I saw the way that it was written.
Yeah.
To then not also have quarterback sneaks, like that becomes difficult. Like the way that it's written, you're like, yeah, but when quarterback sneaks, that happens too. And in like short yardage plays, the running back runs up, and then everybody gets behind him. Like, how do you just can't have short yardage plays anymore, basically.
Well, no, you just can't have somebody come behind the running back
but
or quarterback.
In almost every play.
Now it does because it's allowed.
But it has for a long time.
I don't know
if you go back and look, like short yardage plays,
I'd have to go look back and look.
Then as soon as it's kind of stopped, everybody just kind of jams in there and gets behind them. And if you can't make contact at all, it's so hard to legislate that too.
Yeah.
All right, so when like the offensive guard gets pushed behind, is he out of the play now? He's not allowed to block anybody anymore because now he's behind the play.
He could block somebody, he just can't block the quarterback.
But now he's behind the play, so he can't. Like if he's trying to get back into the mix to push, he's going to make contact with his quarterback. He's going to make contact with he's going to make contact with somebody getting back into the pile.
Yeah.
So it's now you're out of the play.
We'll see how they.
It's very tough to legislate, and the way that it's written, I'm like, there's a lot of plays that are going to be very questionable under this now. So that's where it becomes hard.
Well, we'll see where it all goes, but that's happening next week at the owners' meetings. Adam will be at the first OTA availability next week. I think Pete Carroll might actually talk in some select players and get a chance to see the full group out there, the full 91 out there. Enjoy the weekend. Check back with us next week because we'll have a full recap of what happened at the owners' meetings and also what happened at OTAs. I want to say thank you for all your support. We always appreciate you hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, sending it to friends for a gift. It always makes a great gift, a subscription to Vegas Nation. We appreciate you. We appreciate Station Casinos, STN Sports, and also the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Thank you to Heidi Fang for always making us sound good and all that. Adam Hill, thank you so much. We will see you guys next week.